And these are bad for the
Yeah.
Of course, my allergies are because the mold is very high
Oh.
today.
Oh.
And I haven't been taking an allergy pill. I've been trying to not take this.
Right, yeah.
I should have taken one this morning.
And it's a really bad.
Yeah, you should really, but I've been doing my pump more.
Yeah.
And what's that thing?
It's just. So today's, let me see, today's, like you said, what's the mark?
1923 to 36.
Mark 222 to 26.
223 to 36.
Oh, the
36.
Okay. 26, okay. Hello.
Right behind him, okay.
Oh, howdy, howdy. Hi.
Sue, how are you doing?
Much better,
Oh
thank
my
you.
gosh, good to see you.
It's good to be here, believe me.
It's okay. I have this. We were cleaning up a part of the garage and I came across a bunch of tablecloths. I have this one for graduation.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking about maybe putting it on that extra bonus shelf for the.
Why?
Someone wants a congrats grad tablecloth. Or could I, is there?
Oh,
someplace
I
could
see
put
what you mean. I thought you meant to take it out and lay it on the table.
No, to
Yeah.
give it away.
Exactly.
Someone could just take it.
Yes.
Yeah, or I could put it in the giving closet,
Yeah.
which would be better.
The table is loaded up right now. Oh, here we go.
I've never in my life seen cookies like this.
Well, if you grate it up.
I knew he had a
add
comment.
some
It's
cookies
ginger.
You have some real good.
Yeah, I loaded that cart up yesterday with diced tomatoes from the towers.
Did you?
We got cans and cans and cans of diced tomatoes.
Oh, okay,
So I put it all on the
and the banana.
bonus shelf.
Okay.
And we got vegetable oil.
Did you?
Yeah, we got 2 cases of vegetable
She
oil.
always put it up for you.
And what else do we get? Oh, we got a lot of vegetables, a lot of peas.
One thing I know, you just take,
22 to.
make sure you have some.
And we got lots of pineapples. There's a lot of pineapple.
Just looking to see if I
Mark
marked
Lady
it down
called
right.
yesterday, she
Or
said,
did you say?
I know you like her, but I don't like her, like.
222, okay,
I
3.
said, "She treated me good because I treat her like she's the manager of the building, and not my friend."
Mhm.
3 of this walk.
That's what she is. She's the manager of the building. She's not my friend. Y'all looking for a friendship, and that she's not your friend.
Right.
She's just the manager of the building. So I said, whatever she could do for me, she'll did it for me.
Mhm.
I said, she always telling me she hopes she can get around as good as I do when she get my age. But I said, y'all was a friend. Respect her, but respect her position.
But I didn't come to cut our grass yesterday because of the rain. So I'm thinking he's coming today. At some point.
Rain, man, we got caught in it yesterday.
Oh.
Linda's husband came to pick her up and he's got a red car just like mine.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just going out. It was about 3 o'clock, I think it was yesterday. And she goes to my car.
Oh, no.
And Pastor's standing in the doorway. wrong car. But it didn't last long. By the time I got to
No, it
Manhattan Road,
didn't.
it was done.
Yeah, it didn't last.
Yeah, but man, I got so, just going from
yeah.
this door to my
I'm not
car.
over here, Jane Dunn. I had just walked in the house when it started. As soon as I walked in the house.
Yeah, it was raining and it was hailing
And,
too,
and I was like,
but
oh
not
my
big
God,
hail.
just
Luckily
leave
it
the
was
house.
small hail.
Make it.
Uh,
But I think by the time I got Jeff home, it wasn't raining. Yeah, because it was about Manhattan when it stopped. It was weird.
I saw on Facebook on Monday, you had the racks outside.
That's why we had so many yes
Yeah.
Monday. Yeah.
Do we have a lot of new people on Monday?
We had what?
A lot of new?
11.
people? That's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it always happens when we put food outside.
Yeah, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's recycled water.
Yes, that's what it says. Then I just go with the flow.
Oh,
Just hydrate your way to more rewards. So say,
Oh, is
Yeah,
this,
Putting it down in the garbage.
yeah.
Right on top lawn.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
wow,
Yes.
daily take. This is
Why-
their mood.
Sterilize it, you know.
Why ain't that-
Mail.
Oh,
It's
thank
Yeah,
a
but,
kind of Bible study, except we have to pay for it.
Yeah, probably. Oh, I'll look at that later. So, everybody has, I know we have a minute or two.
Mhm.
We're gonna be doing this I'm leaving. And if you have your packet, the last page was white because there was no study for this particular lesson, which is very interesting. I don't know why that happened, if it fell through the cracks or I don't know, but I did write up a little something. Do you have a copy of that?
I remember what's in it though.
Okay, so you don't need, you
No,
don't want
I
to see
Just
this.
look up Mark 2.
Yeah,
Yeah, the end of Mark chapter 2, the very beginning of Mark chapter 3.
You got a good memory.
right. It's just about 2:00. So why don't we start? I'll say, so I say peace be with you.
Also with you.
Thank you. Let us pray. God of the universe, let's take a moment to consider the vastness of your creation and the very small part that we play in it. Let it fill our hearts with wonder and awe and joy that we have this awareness of life. And be with us as we study your word. May our conversations today be fruitful. May we come to understand you better, and in doing so, live closer to your will. In Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. All right, so as it says at the top of the page, there was no lesson information on the website for the study. So here is the message, which is Mark 2:23 through 3:6. And it says, Jesus challenges the prevailing interpretation of what is lawful on the Sabbath tells his critics that the Sabbath was made for humankind, not the other way around. Healing the man with the withered hand is work that cannot wait until the next day. And I'm going to read from the Message. One Sabbath day, he was walking through a field of ripe grain. As his disciples made a path, they pulled off heads of grain. The Pharisees told on them to Jesus. Look, your disciples are breaking Sabbath rules. Jesus said, really? Haven't you ever read what David did when he was hungry, along with those who were with him? How he entered the sanctuary and ate fresh bread off the altar with the chief priest, Abiathar, right there watching? Holy bread that no one but priests were allowed to eat, and handed it out to his companions. Then Jesus said, the Sabbath was made to serve us. We weren't made to serve the Sabbath. The Son of Man is no lackey to the Sabbath. He's in charge. Then he went back in the meeting place where he found a man with a crippled hand. Pharisees had their eyes on Jesus to see if he would heal him, hoping to catch him in a Sabbath infraction. We said to the man with the crippled hand, stand here where we can see you. Then he spoke to the people. What kind of action suits the Sabbath best? Doing good or doing evil? Helping people or leaving them helpless? No one said a word. He looked them in the eye, one after another, angry now, furious at their hard-nosed religion. He said to the man, hold out your hand. He held it out. It was as good as new. The Pharisees got out as fast as they could, sputtering about how they would join forces with Herod's followers and ruin him. All right. So the first question I have for us is to capture a word, a phrase, or an image that stands out to you in the reading. So you want to take a minute and read through your version and underline what really stood out for you, what jumped out at you, and then we'll just talk about it a little bit. Let's start this way
Okay.
today. So you share something that stood out for you.
Well, the Sabbath was made for humankind and not humankind for the Sabbath. I mean, it's just, they're so worried about following these rules for the Sabbath. Well, that's not really what Jesus talked about that, that, you take care of people. I'm trying to think a good single word, like they're hard-headed or stubborn, rigid, that's it, rigid.
Rigid.
Yeah,
That's, yeah,
okay.
good one.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Wayne?
What you got, Lee?
Well, Bridget is, that's too nice and new kind for them.
Perhaps.
The word I'm thinking of is stupid.
Okay.
They've just seen him perform this tremendous miracle. And they're saying, oh no, he did it on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
The reason Jesus was getting so frustrated I'm thinking is, he had to be thinking to himself, there are some things that don't have to be explained. I do not have to explain why 2 + 2 = 4. I'm not even going to try. Anyway, yeah, that's my word, stupid.
I pass, so,
Pass.
Jenny, you too.
Oh, what you-
I pass.
oh. I'm like Wayne, I was thinking, the Pharisees, to me, they were just looking for something to criticize.
Mhm.
It wasn't that, that I don't believe that they thought it was that wrong to heal or to do what they was doing, but just something to criticize them because they was just looking for something about that man that they had heard about. And, and that was just one of the, it just happened right then and there. I'll pass it on to you.
All right, I underline two things. Is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill? And then I also underlined, he was grieved at their hardness of heart. I passed it on
Well,
to Sue.
I underlined, he was grieved but at their hardness of heart. And I think, he looked at them with anger and he was really upset that they would, criticize him for that. So then, he grieved because he thought he could heal whenever he wanted. And I wrote down, I'll show you, I will heal this man on the Sabbath. What is right? And I pass it on to Jan.
I like lyric read. Stupid
Yes,
is
Please.
stupid down.
Yeah. I had two things underlined. One of the things was what you had said, the Sabbath was made for humankind and not humankind for the Sabbath. And that always struck me like, oh, like, yeah, we made the rules. God doesn't care about these rules. We made these rules, to worship God, but I don't know if he was asking necessarily. But the one that really just bothers me is the last verse is the Pharisees went out and immediately conspired with the Herodians against him how to destroy him. And that really makes me like, dang, they really just can't.
But the Pharisees and Herodians were adversaries.
Yeah, and they were working,
Mhm.
conspiring together to,
Yeah.
keep the law, keep everyone in line. And like you had said about, how did you say it? Like they were stupid.
Yeah.
Here, he's performing these deeds and they're nitpicking, basically. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's not on the Sabbath, so, like that really, but. Anyway, all right. Well, since, I'm gonna be doing all the questions, there's no one to read. I think what I'll do is I have a couple of questions. And so then I'll ask the question and then like you'll be the first person to answer and then you'll be, you know what I mean? Does that kind of make sense? So my next question is, what does verse 27 mean to you? And verse 27 is, then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for humankind and not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath. So what does that verse mean for you, Wayne?
Well, you said it earlier. I'm the Son of Man. I can do this stuff on the Sabbath. What's wrong? What's wrong with doing good on the Sabbath? What do you want me to do instead? Would you like me to do bad?
Yeah. Well, you know why they were saying that, right? Especially with the first part of, they made their way, the disciples began to pluck heads of grain. Do you know the context of, why they were even like saying stuff?
Well, it goes back to, remember the Sabbath day. Well, this is sort of like Congress passing a statute. And then Human Services or Department of Justice or somebody else who will issue regulations. implementing the statute. In this case, the statute is, remember that the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And well, that wasn't enough for the Pharisees. They had to issue their own regulations to the effect, oh, that means this. So if you know, if you can't even scratch your face on the Sabbath because you're exerting yourself. So yeah, that's what oh yeah, they're going through the grain field. They grabbed a few pieces of grain and ate them. Oh gosh. So that's what was going on. They in their codification of that particular 10 commandment, they had all these rules. He said that means this. Of course, they were pulling on the wrong guy. At that time, there probably wasn't anyone else on the planet who knew Hebrew law better than Jesus. So if you were trying to catch him in a mistake, you weren't going to. That's all I got to say.
Sue, what does verse
Okay.
27 mean for you?
Sabbath was made for the good of man, so to remember that, that's a day day of rest, that you're supposed to take time to worship the God and take time to relax and appreciate what you have. And then, but so the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath, that he's above all. Pass it on to you, Jetty.
I'm like Wayne that says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. This is, and we just talked about this with the songs that Pastor did today with the Jehovah's Witness. They don't do anything on the Sabbath.
Right.
They don't even cook on the Sabbath. So, it's a man-made rule. And this is not God's rule, but it's a man's rule. And that's what he was saying here. The rule wasn't for man, it was the Son of Man. Yeah, which is God. I pass it on to you.
Thank you. People were created to just follow the rules of the Pharisees. All right, people can keep the Sabbath day holy, but that doesn't mean they can't eat, or they can't, they can't exist, Jesus is telling the Pharisees that the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath, and the Son of Man can decide what can and what is and isn't, okay to do on the Sabbath. I mean, if someone gets sick, you just let them suffer because it's the Sabbath? That's what I think, so I pass it on to Sue.
Well, I just wonder if the Pharisees were speaking from their heart.
Yeah.
Or if they were just following the rules, if it really meant something to them. And I think, I'm wondering if the Pharisees were looking for something to prove Jesus wrong. And I pass it on to Jen.
No, thank you. I got the so.
All right. Okay. So, one thing about the Sabbath, or we're not supposed to work on the Sabbath, and I believe that comes from on the seventh day of God making the universe and earth, he rested. And so in the Mosaic law, they decided what a great way to, honor God by, oh, we will rest because we are God's children. But unfortunately, that, those rules, those laws, became so rigid that even, just they're hungry plucking grains off of wheat and just, that constituted work. And so, that to me goes like, I think Sue, you were talking about like, I forgot how you were putting it, but it made me think of, there's the spirit, the letter of the law, which is, and the spirit of the law, which is, there's always going to be exceptions to things, and the one thing I remember is that, shepherds, they couldn't observe that. They could not observe the Sabbath because they had to watch the sheep. The sheep were very important. Obviously, they were an important commodity in their culture. They provided so much for, for the people. And so the shepherds really couldn't take that day off. Do you know what I mean? So you can see that there's always this, there's always going to be exceptions, Jeff?
Okay, well, same as just like this one rule, but with the Pharisees, they're like bureaucracy. We're gonna add more regulations onto that. I'm thinking another one, what people like sailors, on a ship, they can't stop, on
Yeah,
Sunday.
they're out in the middle of
Yeah,
the sea.
Mhm,
Yeah, a good one.
okay.
Very good.
Okay.
All right. And now I'd like to go back a little bit, and I'd like to discuss verse 25. And Jesus said to them, have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food? So that is 1 Samuel 21. So if you all have your Bibles, let's go back to that verse. First Samuel 21, and that's after Judges. It's before Psalms. Do you need a Bible? Do you need a Bible?
No.
No? Okay.
Chapter 21?
Yes, chapter 21, 1 Samuel, chapter 21.
Right.
Oh, you two have the exact same Bible? All right. So, I'll just read, it's interesting, it's this little bit here, 1 through 6. David went to Nob to Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech was alarmed as he went out to greet David. What are you doing here all by yourself and not a soul with you? David answered Ahimelech the priest, the king sent me on a mission and gave strict orders. This is top secret. Not a word of this to a soul. I've arranged to meet up with my men in a certain place. Now, what's there here to eat? Do you have 5 loaves of bread? Give me whatever you can scrounge up. I don't have any regular bread on hand, said the priest. I only have holy bread. If your men have not slept with women recently, it's yours. David said, none of us have touched a woman. I always do it this way when I'm on a mission. My men abstain from sex. Even when it is an ordinary mission, we do that. How much more on this holy mission? So the priest gave them the holy bread. It was the only bread he had. Bread of the presence that had been removed from God's presence and replaced by fresh bread at the same time. And so I did a little Google search. What happens to the consecrated bread? And it says in the Old Testament, the consecrated bread, also known as the show bread, or bread of the presence, was eaten by the priests after being displayed on a table in the temple's holy place on each Sabbath. The bread was a food offering to God, and the 12 loaves arranged in 2 rows of 6 represented the 12 tribes of Israel. Let's see, the Kohathite clan was responsible for baking and arranging the bread, and it's possible that there were secret requirements for its preparation. So this was bread that was eaten anyway. by the priests, but you know, I find it interesting that he asks for 5 loaves. Now, where we heard that? 5 loaves and
5
2
loaves
fish?
and 2 fish.
Certain numbers,
Yeah,
yeah.
very interesting to me.
Mhm.
So anyway, what would this look like today? Like, I was thinking about, like, we were famished and we had to consume communion wafers. As, you know, for, you know, just some extraneous circumstance. And, you know, right in there is the communion wafers and the wine and there's juice and stuff like that. Like, what if there was a circumstance where, like, that's all we had, and if I didn't have something to eat or something to drink, I would be like, I'd pass out, you know? Or what about if we performed communion with unconsecrated bread or wine? You know, like the pastor blesses the bread and the wine. I don't know, those of you who are aware, that's, so like the bread and the wine that we consume has been, like, words have been said over by, you know, a pastor, you know, someone who is ordained. And, you know, what if, again, like, what if we had to do service like has happened? And pastor hadn't had any time, he was not here and he wasn't able to consecrate the bread and the wine, like, and we went ahead and gave out communion, like, you know, what are your thoughts about that? Or what do you have to add? So, well, let's start with Sue on that.
Me?
Sue, no,
Oh,
Sue,
I
Sue asked.
pass for right now.
Oh,
Go ahead, Jenny.
that's a tough one, because, you know, in our service, the elders, one is 2, or if both of them are not there, the pastor pray for one, and then one of the elders pray for the other one, you know, they pray for the bread, then they choose.
So it's
to-
not your pastor who does it.
No, they do, the elders and the if the,
Oh,
if
and
the
the
pastor
pastor.
only do it if the elders are not there, but he's in the middle.
Got it.
So we only have 2 elders, one of them resigned, so the 2 elders are in, you know, on each side of him.
So it's done during your service,
Yeah.
not prior.
Yeah, when the service is over, we have it at the end.
Hmm.
So then he have one of them to pray for the bread. And then when we eat the bread, then he had the other one to pray for the juice. So that's the way they have always did it. In the South, we did it different, you know, but I think that as anyone, you know, I don't think you really need to be ordained to ask a blessing over something. You know, I just feel like if God knows the heart of the person, and if you asking him to bless this, you know, and then if you secretly speaking to him, a lot of I don't know, I do, and a lot of other people, before we do the communion, you know, I take a silent moment and just reflect on me before I take bread or the, you know, juice. So I think God knows, you know, at all, and if the pastor's not, you know, haven't prayed over it, I'm sure that it's enough godly people in the church that they can pray over that, you know, and bless it, you know, too. And I believe God will see it. I really do. I believe He'll hear it. I have that much confidence as a Christian that God, you know, knows our heart. And He knows where we're coming from. So, okay.
I have to agree with Jenny. When we take communion, we are not drinking Jesus's blood, it's symbolic.
Mhm.
And when we eat the communion wafer, the bread, we're not actually eating Jesus's body. If a like if Jeff can give communion, I mean, obviously pastor is blessing this before, but if Jeff can go to a congregation member's house and give communion, or I can give the pastor communion, I don't really, God knows what's in our heart, you know, so I really don't think it's that it's not a huge crisis if we have communion and the pastor, you know, especially if it's some unforeseen circumstance, you know,
Right, right.
so I pass it on to Sue.
Okay, I agree with Judy and Jenny, but I also remember one time when I was going to take communion to a shut-in. And Pastor Ortiz, who was our minister for a little while,
Mhm.
I asked him to consecrate it, and he says, well, all you have to do is put it on the altar. And that really, you know, at first I thought, you know, that's kind of weird, you know, but then I thought, okay, God knows it's here. So that's all I've got to say. I pass it on to Jan.
Yeah, I used to do communion, you know, for shut-ins, and I just used First Corinthians.
Mhm.
You know, when he said he broke the bread, you know, he said, I used that.
Well, we do use
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's right.
saying.
Yeah,
That's what
that's
I
true.
did, and
You
I
say
did
that
it to
too.
shut in. Even my girlfriend, Lord, I thank you, because some just led me to give her communion. She went in the hospital. She was getting ready to go to the hospital the same day I got there to give her communion. She died within that week. And she confessed it to me that she believed, but she wasn't a church member, but she confessed to me that she believed that Christ died for sins. So and that was for me working with her them years she was sick
Mhm.
and showing the, I think showing the love. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
for
through.
sure. Jan, would you like to add anything?
Mm. I agree with everyone here.
Okay.
So
Um, yeah, I agree with what everyone said. Ask to you, Jeff.
Okay, well, let's just say, we do this. Give thanks to God for the bread and wine, you know, so. No, that's about it, you know. I could just imagine other churches, when they see me give communion to the pastor, they probably be, you know, up in arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Yeah,
Oh,
perhaps.
that's it. So.
Well, I have a question.
Hmm.
What if pastor or somebody wasn't around to consecrate?
Right, that's what that's what I mean.
Would you deny somebody who really wants communion because it wasn't consecrated?
Exactly.
Don't
Yeah.
think so.
I would not deny them.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Right.
Or, well, you know, what's interesting, you said Pastor Ortiz said all you have to do is put it on the altar. Well, then I'd like to ask Daryl what he does, but whoever sets up communion is the first person to put it on the altar. Does that mean they've
It's
consecrated?
Yeah.
Because
that's true.
I set up for communion because Donna wasn't here, but you know, usually it's Donna, and in the past it's been Barb Zemer used to do it. I don't know who else besides that. I mean, you at your church, you and I do it, you know, when Donna can't be here. So yeah, but I know that you know, when Pastor can't be here and like the times that we led the service, he has said, you know, that he has already, you know, blessed the bread and the wine. And so I wonder if he like lays it on the altar and says, you know, whatever he might say, and then he puts it away for, you know, for later. So I don't know. I'd like to ask him, not this moment, but at some point, like, what do you do? So, but anyway, Wayne, how
Well,
would you like to answer?
I'm gonna answer the question with another question. What did Jesus do to consecrate the bread and the wine?
He said, "This is my body.
Yeah,
That's
which I
right.
given to you.
He was the
And
first one to do
remembrance
it.
of me."
That's right, he was
That's
the
what
first one. How did, yeah.
So,
My point is, if it was good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
Right.
amen to that.
Mhm.
All right, and Sue, you started.
Mhm.
Sort of. Well, you answered the first time, so let's move on. Now I'd like us to discuss chapter 3, verse 4, which is, then he said to them, is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill? And I would like to reference Luke, actually, Luke 14. So I'm gonna flip up to Luke 14. is right after Mark. And, and I will read, what was I say? Oh, 1 through 5. So one time when Jesus went for a Sabbath meal with one of the top leaders of the Pharisees, all the guests had their eyes on him, watching his every move. Right before him, there was a man hugely swollen in his joints. So Jesus asked the religion scholars and Pharisees present, "Is it permitted to heal on the Sabbath? Yes or no?" They were silent. So he took the man, healed him, and sent him on his way. Then he said, "Is there anyone here who, if a child or animal fell down a well, wouldn't rush to pull him out immediately, not asking whether or not it was the Sabbath?" They were stumped. There was nothing they could say to that. So, with that context, a little added context, what are your thoughts about verse 4, which is, is it lawful to do good or do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill? And to remember that, the context is that they weren't allowed to do any work. So Jenny, you want any,
It's lawful to do good all the time.
Yeah.
So what?
Sabbath
to
or
me-
not?
Yeah, it's just like if this the Sabbath, so if it's the Sabbath, and something is going wrong, you gotta correct it. That's just nature. I don't know. These are the Pharisees was just picking on the Lord. Jesus. They were just picking on him because there's no way that you're gonna let your child lay in the street
Mhm.
on the Sabbath,
Mm-hmm.
or you see someone else in the streets, you're gonna help them. And it's just what I don't know. It was just them. I believe. I don't. Man was man, not God. I pass it on.
Thank you. Well, I think Jesus and God would heal. They would have no problem healing somebody or saving somebody. I mean, if one of the Pharisees' children fell down the well, are they just gonna stand there and say,
Yeah.
I can't do anything?
Well, the Sabbath
Because
is
it's the
over in
Sabbath.
5 hours, so hang tight, kid.
I mean, what are they gonna say?
Or whatever.
I mean, and just the fact that they couldn't say anything to Jesus when he asked them this.
They were stumped.
I mean, the Pharisees made up these things because they could. I mean, and again, they're targeting Jesus because they know that he is going to heal somebody. And here again, if Jesus is the Son of Man, who are the Pharisees to tell him, you can't do this, So I pass it on to Sue.
Okay, I would, definitely help anybody, no matter what the situation or when it was. And I think I would be led by Jesus to do that. And he's taught us to do that. How angry he got at the Pharisees when they didn't want to do anything on the Sabbath. And I have a little story. It's not related to to this question, but I had a great aunt and uncle that were Seventh-day Adventists. And I lived right in River Grove, and they lived in Glen Ellen. And my daughter was like 3 or 4 years old, and I'd go up there and help them all the time. I'd take their storm windows down, I'd plant potatoes, I did everything for them. And one time, the only time I could go was on a Saturday. So I went up there, and my uncle would not even let me in the door.
Oh, cause Saturday was their
Because he said
Sabbath.
it's Sabbath day, you can't come in, you can't do anything. And I heard, you know, he knew how far I came. He could have at least invited me into his house.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I had to turn around, come right back home. It was a
Mm.
Sabbath day and he would not,
So entertaining you, visiting with you was
Right.
considered work.
right. But he didn't think of me traveling as far as I did to get there to help him. But that's the way it was.
Interesting.
And I passed it on to Jan.
Mm. So is it Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
Well, it depends on your faith,
Oh, that's true, too,
tradition. For the Jewish people, the Sabbath is Saturday.
Yeah.
For
Pastor Sabbath is Friday.
that he makes
That's
it,
true.
he makes his own Sabbath. That's his
That's true.
Sabbath,
It's his
right?
day.
But yeah, so yeah, traditionally it was Saturday night.
Oh,
And there are some faiths that practice that, but for Lutherans and for many Protestants, it's Sunday.
so is anyone anything wrong with it?
With what? With
Which day you do it.
which
Yeah.
day? Well, I think that speaks to this whole, Jesus's whole point here is
Mhm.
that we make up the rules. So if you want your Sabbath to be Friday, if you want it to be Saturday, if you want it to be Sunday, you know,
Or implement it?
even, yeah, it could be any day of the week.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
about observing it. And, yeah, so.
Oh, thank you. I
Fascinating.
didn't understand.
Yeah, oh. Yeah. I think it's confusing sometimes, and I
Mm.
think it's by
Mhm.
design to be confusing sometimes. But Jenny, I like what you had said. You had said about like nitpicking, Pharisees were nitpicking, and that's been said. Others of us have said that. And I think what a lot of it comes down to is that the Pharisees were trying to stay in power. It was really just a power grab to make sure. And it reminds me of the movie A Bug's Life. Does anybody know that movie? That's one of Disney Pixar's first movies, so it's kind of a while ago. It's a cute movie. Basically, one part of the movie is it's about these ants, and they're always
Yeah.
working and working. And they're working to secure food for the winter, and also for these grasshoppers that come seasonally every year, and they just take all their stuff. They take and they know they're going to come every year. And there's this one scene, and it's Kevin Spacey plays the head. He has the voice of the head grasshopper, and he's talking to the other guys, the other grasshoppers in the bar, which is underneath this hat, it's hilarious. But he's like, do you realize if they understood that there's so many more of them than us, so they could take us over easily, we'd be ruined. We'd be finished. And to me, that reminds me of like these Pharisees. Obviously, there weren't that many Pharisees compared to the rest of, the Jewish culture. The lay people, if you will. And so it just makes me think that this is what this is. Like, if the lay people realized that they could overtake us, we would be thrown out of power. So, then I'm also reminded of, there's another, I think this is in Matthew as well, where the Pharisee says, there are 6 days in which to heal. You should do your healing on that day. And it's like, what? Anyway, pass it to you, Jeff.
Wow. And I just say that God was in charge of something. He could do whatever he wants, and like, the Pharisees, like I helped take Jan to the hospital, on Sunday. There was anyone else say, no, you can't do that. You have to wait till Monday,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're like that. And I'm kind of curious about the Pharisees. How long before they lost their power,
And you stay with me the whole day.
Oh, yeah. It was a long day.
A whole day.
Yeah.
That's it.
Got anything to add, Lee?
I've got nothing to add. All the other answers are so good.
How about you, Sue?
I agree with what's been said.
All right. And you were the first to answer. Actually, it's right in Luke 13. Yeah. Yeah, 6 days have been defined as work days. Come on one of the 6 days if you want to be healed, but not on the seventh, the Sabbath. Luke 13, verse 14. All right. So the next question is, and we're going to focus on verse 6, the last verse. The Pharisees went out and immediately conspired with the Herodians against him to destroy him. Why do you think the Pharisees wanted to destroy Jesus after this exchange?
Because they knew how powerful Jesus was. And they felt threatened by Jesus. Jesus was, I mean, they couldn't heal people. They knew Jesus could do it. And they didn't want to lose their power. They were threatened by it. So let's just get rid of them and then we don't have to worry about losing our power. And I pass it on to Sue.
I have nothing to add, so I pass it on to Jan.
I don't have anything to say, so. Then.
I think I kind of answered it in my last answer about, they were trying to stay in power. And I like what you said, they were absolutely threatened by him. So, and we also know from a couple weeks ago about how Nicodemus came in and said, we really know that you're the real deal. So.
Well, I agree with Julie, so.
Even today, we still have people who will do something that no one in his right mind to do just to be politically correct. That is the ancient version of political correctness. Your turn.
I agree with what's been said. They just wanted to put Jesus down any way they could. And they couldn't break him. They knew he was strong.
Yeah, they couldn't wait. They just had to conspire. But it was like it's the power. It was all power. It was all about
Had nothing to do with being kind and good to each other.
kind of whatever was going on. It was all about not losing the power that they had. So they was just conspiring against him. Started like.
Yep. All right. And so my last question is, what is God calling you to do, to be, or to change after this reading? About a minute. Take a minute. What is God calling you to do? What is God calling you to be? Or what is God calling you to change after our reading?
Certainly God hasn't called me to change the rules. But I think God has called me to do what I think is right and what I've been taught. And I pass it on to Jan.
I agree with both.
Okay.
After the book.
For me, I'm not getting so hung up on rules. Sometimes depend if I want something to go my way, and I know the rules are a little, in my favor, but I shouldn't really, there's always going to be exceptions and especially that, when Jesus says the Sabbath was made for humans, humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath, that, I can cling to I have my own rules or whatever, or ways of thinking that I think are right, and any other way of thinking is wrong. I have to remember that everyone's got their own way of thinking, like we all have our own way of thinking, and it's okay. The world's not going to fall apart. So.
Well, I kind of agree both with Sue and you, so
Right.
that's it, so.
I only partially agree with you.
Okay.
Now, it's true that we have a lot of situations where the answer is not entirely clear cut. You know, they're complex situations. There, there, there are some situations, there is no perfect solution, if any solution at all. However, every once in a while, something comes along. It's so obvious. You can't really excuse the other side from making the decision that they've made.
Mm. Yeah. I
They,
can- I
they,
can think of
they,
something
they're,
right now.
what, I mean, they're doing something no one in his right mind to do. You just can't excuse that. Anyway. If you're curious, I'll tell you later what I'm thinking of.
I have an idea what it might be.
You do?
Maybe, I don't know, like what's going on in other lands.
No.
Oh, not
Oh,
that
one of my comments was in other lands, but the more immediate one, you're probably not even aware of.
Got me thinking. All right, curious.
Your turn.
I agree with Sue.
Well, I've been working on self a little bit because you in life, you go through this, you realize that everybody is not on the same level as you. Everybody's priority is not the same as yours. And it's been hard for me because of, that Southern raising and all of that. Even though my grandkids today love the way they was brought up, the boys do. But you got to meet a person on their level, and I'm working on me to meet them on their level, not look at what I am, to meet them where they are. And I've been working on, and I think that's one of the things I have struggled with, all my life is like trying to make people do what I feel is right. And when is right, but not. So now I'm trying to work on just meeting them where they are, respecting their opinion, and let it go. So that's a hard one, but I think through prayer and everything, I'm doing better than what I was.
I agree with Lauren about trying to keep an open mind and not necessarily judge people for what they think. I mean, everybody has a different, different people are coming from different places. But I think I should do what I think is right, not what other people may think is right. If I see somebody that's being bullied or something, then I need to speak up and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not right. And you start.
Yeah.
All right, just thought of something here. All right, so we usually do it the last. Oh, so we have a prayer. Well, let's let's just all pray the Lord's Prayer.
Okay.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. And I just realized that we have two versions of this prayer. And plus, if you look in the Bible for it, where, Jesus, it's in the Gospels, it's also different. So
Yes.
there it goes.
Well, we got you.
Translations
But I mean, this
different.
also
I read
illustrates
different
our
translations.
lesson is, you
And
know,
it's
no one
different.
way is the right way.
But what prayer did Jesus teach us? The one we just said?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's the way I go.
that's the way I go, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I do have a last word for us. You know, how
Okay, what's the
usually
last
the
word?
last word is, I'd like you to think about a long-held belief that you have, that you know other people think differently about, and contemplate why you think that way. Yeah. And also I invite you to read about David as well, some, especially in that First Samuel and some of his exploits. And it's very interesting because, you know, the Hebrews and the Israelites, the Jewish people, like they really revered David as, you know, like he was their guy, you know. And so First Samuel does highlight a lot of his exploits and the way he lived, and so you get a feel. So I guess that could also be what we call it, a dig deeper, look into that if you want to. And who would like to lead next week?
I can do it.
You want to do it? Thanks, Judy.
I would like to see other people step up and do it, other than Lauren, Judy, and me.
Well, who would say, but I've been like under the weather, and then my air is not working in my car, and at 90 degrees, I can't get out there, I can't breathe that well. That's one of the reasons I haven't been jumping up, because my health is not, I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes you don't always come, you're not able to